So continuing with the narrative concerning dunya. Is it good, bad, or otherwise? And we talked about that dunya actually is basically, if we're talking about the things that in the world, so they are actually not the issue. The issue is man's perception of them and man's interaction with them. So continuing with this narrative, we have a chapter which is basically, it talks about Bab al-Dham al-Bukhl wal-Hirs wal-Tama. So the reprehensiveness or the disdain of greediness and stinginess and wanting, to amass wealth and world and, the desire and this hope for acquiring more and more. So here, Musannif says something of this effect that, and it's kind of recapping what we said earlier, is that wealth in and of itself is not, either praiseworthy or blameworthy. It's actually the conditions of the human being in its response or in its interaction with it. And those characteristics which are blameworthy that will be found in the human that actually is blameworthy is, as is mentioned, the desire to always have more of the wealth and to, get it from wherever and however, just get it, And also amassing it and then preventing it to go to those who have, rights to it, preventing it, from giving people their rights and their dues, and also in expending it, in ways which are not proper. And that's case in point is that many of us, we are cognizant that we need to earn halal, but we don't realize, many of us, that also we need to spend not only in halal, but we need to spend properly. We have to earn properly. Where did you get, this is going to be one of the important questions before we can move on the Day of Judgment. Where did you get your wealth? Where did you spend it? So some of us are a bit particular. We're getting it where, but where we're spending it, it's halal. But is it necessary expenditure? Is it good expenditure? Are we spending on things and other things that we actually should have been spending, we're not. So, in other words, that requires a sort of a gap analysis, if you will. We need to actually look at where we're earning, and we need to actually monitor our spending, just like you do in business. And therefore, Sayyidina Umar says, "Hasibu qabla an tuhasabu." Take account of yourselves before you're taken account of. So we would do well to actually take an account. Where am I spending? And, will I be held accountable? Will Allah want to take me to task? Once in South Africa, one of our young active individuals in the effort of dawat and khidmat of deen and all that, so but used to drive a Porsche, So the imam of his masjid was my former student. So then he said, "Can you talk to this guy? He says that this Porsche is fine, And I have an issue." I guess he had kind of an issue with that. So what do you have to say about that? I said, well, it's not in my hand, and I'm not going to take you to account, that's for sure. But on the Day of Judgment, Allah is going to ask us, where did we earn and where did we spend? So if you feel that you have a very solid, reason or excuse for having to buy this extremely expensive car. Now you can imagine in South Africa, you could have bought this car, a nice Toyota Corolla or something, and maybe bought 10 more for other people who don't even have a car, maybe. So if you feel that you're quite comfortable with your response when Allah asks you, so then I wouldn't have anything more to say. If you think you might have a problem there, then maybe you need to reassess the situation. Okay. So if we will really look objectively at what we're doing, you know, in al-insan ala nafsihi basira wa alqa ma'adira, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, you know. Insan, you know, everybody knows if they really objectively start looking at them, they know best what they're doing. And they really know in their hearts of hearts what's right and what's wrong. And even though they give all kinds of excuses and all kinds of scapegoats, but end of the day, you know, just keeping that in mind that we're going to have to answer for this. And we can't come up with a slick story also in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, you hire a good lawyer and you get away with a lot of stuff here. And the better the lawyer, then the more stuff you get away with. But it doesn't work like that, you know. It doesn't work like that in the hereafter. You know, here, the poor guy, he pays, you know, 20, 30, 40% taxes, and billionaires pay zero, or they collect refunds. So it's not like that in the hereafter. You can't, there's no loopholes. It's all going to be reality. Okay? So, in that context, so also other, you know, things that are blameworthy, which again, it's not the things in the world that are blameworthy, but it's our interaction and our approach to them. Getting them obviously from their incorrect sources, and then spending in the wrong places, and also, you know, earning or spending with pride involved. You know, our Shaykh used to tell us, he said, you know, you wear, you know, libas al-taqwa. What is libas al-taqwa? Is there, you know, is there some kind of garment in the store? It's called taqwa, and you can purchase it and put it on? No. It's the character. There's two characteristics. So one is the libas al-taqwa is that it's halal. It's also ittiba' sunnah, it's following sharia and all this kind of thing. The other thing is what is the condition of the heart in wearing it? Maybe it's a very nice, very Islamic garment. When I put it on, hey, you know, I'm somebody. You'd be better off to put on a suit and tie, because, you know, than getting arrogant and feeling that you're better than somebody, you know. So, fakhr, you know, being proud. Therefore, our ancestors, they many of them had a very, very sort of rustic approach in their dress, in their eating, and all these things to keep themselves humble, you know, because, you know, the clothing affects the inner condition of the human being. What we wear, our countenance, you know, our everything outside of us has an impact on our inside, just as our inside impacts and manifests, you know, on the outside. So it's not just outside or inside; they're both, and therefore there's a focus on all these aspects, not just one side or the other. So if these are the garments of pride, even if they're halal, even they're mubah, even they're very Islamically styled, it's not going to work. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this connection, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةٌ. Your wealth and your children, these are all tests and trials to see how you're going to react. There's also a riwayat in Sunan al-Tirmidhi that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says basically that there are no two hungry wolves that have been sent into a pack of sheep, and so they have destroyed the sheep more than what this hirs of a person, you know, this desire and this covetedness of his wealth has on his deen and on his connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in other words, you can imagine two extremely hungry wolves in a pack of sheep, what devastation they're going to do. So this desire for more and keeping and getting, you know, it's very destructive. And our ancestors, they used to actually be very anxious and even afraid, you could say, of the fitnat of the mal, this tribulation of mal. You know, they say that the tribulation of poverty is more difficult than the tribulation of wealth. Poverty, you know, you tend to look to the sky, and when the wealth comes, we tend to, oh, I'm set. And then we're going to talk a little bit also, once you're set, also the inclination towards, now I have plenty of resources, I can do all kinds of things. And shaitan and nafs is busy. If we don't have the resources, we have no approach. It's a closed chapter, more or less. In spite of that, you have people that are so much, they're burning up inside because they don't have that and they can't get that. Allah save us from all such type of things. So, very important point. And so Umar, he quotes one saying of Umar that if this mal and having plenty of the wealth was something good and honorable and virtuous, then how is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept Nabi sallallahu away from such things? And of course, we mentioned many times that Nabi sallallahu by choice. Otherwise, he was given the option. Would you like the mountains of Makkah turned into gold? Okay, we can do that. No, I want to be hungry one day, be patient, and then get something to eat the next day and be grateful. So that's the example of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Abu Bakr, of course, he was quite well to do. In Makkah, it was all spent in the path of Allah. One of our pious ancestors, Yahya ibn Mu'adh, he says the dirham, which is the gold, the silver coins, these. He says the silver coins are actually like scorpions. So, if you know how to, there's a thing which we call ruqya. Heard of ruqya? If you, for example, there's certain things you can recite. There's even things regarding scorpions that you can recite from Quran and Sunnah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by His fadl, He can ward them off. So if you know the ruqya for the dirham, for the scorpion, the dirham is like a scorpion, then okay, because also, that poison of the scorpions, they also use it for a type of medication. The Hukama, they used to use these things in some types of beneficial applications. So he says, this money is like the scorpion. It's got poison and it's got benefit. So if you know the ruqya to keep it at bay, well then good. Otherwise, be careful. It'll probably sting you, and that sting can be lethal. So so if it bites you, it'll kill you. So somebody said, okay, so what's the ruqya? He said the ruqya for that is to get it from its halal place and spend it in its halal and proper place. So if you know that, if you got that sorted out, well and good. Allahu Akbar. Okay, so what about here? There's an interesting chapter that the actual praise of wealth. Praise of wealth. We were talking about how bad dunya is. So does that mean wealth? No. In fact, if you look at it, mal is a ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we mentioned, it's not that the mal is praiseworthy or blameworthy, it's how we deal with it. And in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered us, and Nabi has also ordered us, that we should take good care of our property. You're not allowed to squander away your property. And there we mentioned, those who are following in our Surah An-Nisa, وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أَمْوَالَكُمُ الَّتِي جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ قِيَامًا. Don't, if you're entrusted with the wealth of, of your family members or somebody who are, they're a bit, what's the word I want? They're out of control in terms of their usage of money. Safiya, they don't really, they squander away their money and they don't utilize it properly. So stop them from that. Don't give them the money. Don't let them squander away, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this money as a means. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala engineered our, interaction in the world. The mode of transactions and reciprocation of goods for services and other goods for different goods. And in that, there's a test and trial in how we're dealing with that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the medium money, the mal. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the order, protect it. Don't let people squander it away and use it foolishly. And if you mention tafsir, amwalakum, actually it's their money. But the money, the responsibility is yours and everybody's, because good use of resources is going to be beneficial ultimately for the entire society. Squandering away the resources is going to have an impact negatively on the entire society. Sa'id ibn Musayyib was one of the great, one of the great tabi'een and one of the great ulama and zuhad as well. And, as for lack of a better word, ascetic, in other words, zahid, a person who's not interested in the world. That's not his objective at all, and they're quite abstaining. But he says there's no good in a person who doesn't have any, desire or wish to gather, a sufficient amount of wealth, and for his needs. In other words, because this person's going to be, looking to others, or he's going to be begging, or he's going to not able to fulfill his. So this is not good, right? لا خير في من لا يريد جمع المال من حله, who doesn't want to, get a sufficient amount of wealth from, its legal sources. So يكف به وجهه عن الناس, so that he will, keep himself. In other words, it's an Arabic expression which basically means that to save his honor, Otherwise, you're going to be, if not asking for something, you're going to be wanting for something, right? So this is not an honorable position. Allahu Akbar. And yasilu bihi rahimahu. And he can also, with that mal, give to his relatives and be kind and show goodness and kindness to his relatives. وَيُعْطِي مِنْهُ حَقَّهُ. And give the people the rights that they deserve. Another one of our pious ancestors says that our ancestors, our pious ancestors, used to see that excess in wealth, reasonably is a help in deen for all those good purposes that were mentioned. Sufyan, whether it was Sufyan al-Thawri, probably it might have been Sufyan ibn Uyayna. The two of them were both at the same time, and both of them were great ulama and great zuhad. So he says that wealth in our time, it's like a weapon for the mu'min. If you don't have any wealth or resources, then you're going to be the underdog. So it's something, part of the material resources that you would gather together for that purpose. So next, people are starting to getting anxious. They want to get back to their. So inshallah, we'll continue this, and we'll talk more about the various benefits of wealth, both from a worldly perspective and from a religious perspective. Worldly perspective, of course, everybody knows about that, and that's why everybody is vying with one another, eliminating their competition and that whole scenario. So you don't really have to explain that much to people. They know about that. But what is the benefit religiously? Inshallah, we'll be listening to that next week, inshallah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.